In today's video, we'll be taking a look at Maris Brood for the 30th anniversary line, based upon her appearance from the video game Force Unleashed. So I would rate Maris Brood very high on the list of underrated and underutilized characters in Star Wars. Recently, I was watching the cutscenes film of the Force Unleashed again on YouTube. I do watch that every now and then, maybe once a year on average. And watching the scenes of Maris, it's like, wow, she's heavily underutilized, very interesting character. You could tell she's very disturbed, and she has a history that we don't really get to dive too much into the game. And of course, if at this point you probably know the story of the game, she goes off on her own. She promises to basically turn away from the dark side. And as far as I know, we never find out what actually happens to her outside the Force Unleashed, and who knows, maybe even a couple mentions here and there. We really don't know what Maris Brood's fate was. And I think she's a character that deserved a little bit more screen time than what we had. Maybe she should have showed up in the Force Unleashed 2. Maybe she was going to show up in the Force Unleashed 3. Who knows? I think she'd be a character that potentially would come back and help out Starkiller at some point. And even if there was a novel out there somewhere about Maris and her ultimate fate, or what she ends up doing, or another adventure with her, I think that'd be interesting. And if she is Shakti's apprentice, there's no reason why we couldn't have a little bit of a context as to how Shakti found her, and then her training as she was growing up. So, point being, Maris is heavily underused, and I think she deserved a lot more stories within the expanding universe. But thankfully, we do have an action figure of her. This is the only one that Hasbro's ever made, and it's a really good one. It is kind of awkward in some ways, mainly in the articulation, and I'll point that out here in a little bit. But we'll just go ahead and dive into this action figure. So as you can see with the sculpting work with her, she has her hip at an angle there, and she's kind of sculpted in that position. It's pretty much the only way you're going to get her. So she is an Iridonian, and I think this is back before the time before Darth Maul ended up getting relisted as like a Night Brother from Dathomir. It was at that time when he was still considered Iridonian, or Zabrak, that is. So Maris here and Maul were technically the same species. Or I don't know if Maris is from Iridonia, but she's Zabrak at least. As you can see by the horns there, a little bit more faint on her. How she managed to grow hair, I don't know. Maybe it's not hair, maybe it's a wig. So something else unique about Maris is her lightsaber. She has that extra handle on the side of them, which, as far as I know, we've never really seen with any other Star Wars characters. So that was something unique that the Force Unleashed introduced. As you can see, she does have a very pasty colored skin, kind of like she's a vampire a little bit. And she has those bright red eyes, which I don't know if that was Hasbro's intention to do that. Sometimes some action figures ended up having red eyes when they really shouldn't. But I think in Maris's case here, it works out perfectly, kind of alluding to her being part of the dark side. Or I would have to go back and check in the game too if she had red eyes in there. I'm pretty sure she didn't, though. And for her pants, just brown pants and black boots. That's really all there is to say. So here's where she kind of gets a little awkward. So for the articulation, she does have a ball joint head. It's pretty good. She has hinged shoulders, then hinged elbows, then swivel forearms, not swivel wrists. She does have a swivel upper torso there, as you can see, and she has swivel hips. Now, no articulation in the knees, but she does have hinged ankles. Not too often do we see action figures like that where they have hinged ankles but then no knee articulation. If anything, it's the other way around. And as far as off the top of my head, I don't think any other action figure Hasbro's ever made has really been like that, with articulated ankles but no knees. So I think she could have benefited from that, having the knee articulation. In terms of weapons and accessories, of course she has her two lightsabers, which are both the same exact thing, and they fit well in her hand there. Okay, I have a, I wouldn't say rusty, but definitely more of a worn lightsaber hilt. And it was like that when I got it. I actually didn't get this action figure until around the same time I got Coda. I didn't get her when she initially came out. I think at that same Kohl's I saw Coda. I think I may have saw Maris Barud there as well, and I've never seen her any other time in the wild after that. I would say between Maris here and Ram Coda, those are probably the two rarest and hardest to find Force Unleashed action figures that are out there. Like I said, between the two of them, I've only seen them once, and it was at the same place, and never again. I ended up having to get her off eBay. Nice, kind of a pinkish red blade for both of them. And something else kind of interesting about her, she has a little bit of red on her knuckles there. Or maybe not so much on her knuckles, but at least at the end of her fingers. Interesting touch of detail about her. Then, of course, like many of the 2008 30th anniversary figures, she does have her signature stand, Maris Barud, Expanding Universe. And thankfully the stand fits pretty good on her. I've mentioned it before, and I wish that Hasbro would bring these type of stands back or utilize them more throughout the years. All we had them for was during the Saga collection, and then they brought them back for the end of the 30th anniversary collection. That was it. But for the characters that did receive this type of stand, I'm glad a lot of the Force Unleashed ones did. Gives them a little bit more of a uniqueness. Looks really good. And just for some comparisons here, she is with her master from the same scene, Shakti, who I do have reviewed on the channel as well. Then Felucian Warrior. And all three of these look really good together. Do this way. So what more can I say about Maris Barud here? Would I recommend her for your collection? I totally would. Very interesting character, very nice action figure. As far as price is concerned, I imagine she's around the same price range as like Ram Coda. I have seen some outrageous prices every now and then, but at the same time I have seen some very reasonable prices brand new. Unfortunately, she was not repacked into the Legacy Collection. Similar to like Coda, they just got the one release and that was it. So she's a little bit more scarce. But if you shop around for a little bit and you really want Maris for your collection, I have no doubt you'll be able to find one for a good price. Would she make a good Black Series edition? I think so. I think a lot of people will be on board for that. Who knows if Hasbro will ever get around to that. I imagine a character like Maris is probably not high on Hasbro's agenda these days. And they probably take one look at her and be like, no way, we're not going to do that. You know how Hasbro is these days. But who knows, sometimes they surprise us. But overall, great character, underrated character, underutilized, and a great action figure all around. I have no complaints about it. So anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for plenty more reviews in the future. There will be lots more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your support. And check out some of the links in the description as well. Thanks for watching.